Zephyr, by Araukana Media, is a narrative role-playing game of, as the book describes itself, an anarchist game of fleeting identities. Welcome to the world of Zephyr, set on the wandering sentient continent of Ophoi. It travels on an endless march across an endless salt flat, its four lungs bursting with sentimental energy, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. These alien emotions coalesce into mountains made of rage, rivers of sorrow, fields grown out of the essence of guilt, everything that is, in its whole colorful gamut, including complex life forms, like the Windfolks. Descended from four clans, you, the players, shall play as newly created Windfolks, sit down around a campfire to listen to the elders' tales of the past, and, upon reaching adulthood, take on obligations, tasks to complete that might take you to faraway lands, to forge strong lasting ties with one community. First thing first, before I start explaining how to play Zephyr, this book is incredibly beautiful. There's so many artworks that just let the land breathe, followed by poetic phrases beautifully describing the scenes, adding more to it. The art is also sometimes used to show how the game mechanic works, like a comic. This is especially prominent in character creation, as the book shows your characters being weaved together in a maelstrom from chips of ammonium, rather than just telling you with words like most ttrpg would. Most of the character creation section will look like this. You create your Windfolks by grabbing 8 random tokens of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, called maelstrom tokens used solely for character creation. Each represents Ophoi's 4 feelings, and you spend it to gain traits or starting technologies from your clans. White tokens means any tokens, by the way. There's Wind Clan, who are light on their feet and enjoy gliding through the sky. The Frontier Clan, who fled their former home from the Salt States and now seek to protect their new one. The Moon Clan, who desire to be the one people can reach out to, feeling a sentimental value to others around them. And the Earthen Folk, who lives in cave network and can see through their other senses better than with their non-existent eyes. After picking your clan, your character literally sat down around a fireplace and listened to a turaga, elder who tell them of the tales and stories of the past. And when you see a trait you want, or just because you like what your Windfolk's answer is to the question, you then spend a token. I really like that if you don't spend a token for a question to a story, other than just getting a negative trait, because you didn't spend anything, your answer sounds so grim, or hopeless, or just dark, because you didn't answer it with emotion. The color of these tokens aren't just for show, they are actual emotion of Ophoi, very alien ones, so they don't really correspond to anything one-to-one. Cyan Zephyr evokes ambivalence, yellow is like a fiery burst, magenta pushes Windfolk to differentiate from the rest, and black regulates them. You don't exactly need to fully understand this to play the game, but it really adds to the world when you do. These stories and tales you heard when you create your Windfolks also add so much to the wonder of the worlds, like, what is the Salt State, the Paragon, ammonium, how Windfolks see the world, what is myth, and what is actual history. It just adds so much to your wonder and expectation in the first session alone. Also, put the word H or PH in your Windfolk's name, like the sound of the wind. Just write something simple. You definitely don't need to worry about accidentally misappropriate Polynesian mythology here. Now, let's talk about how you play the game. First thing first, one of the most common thing you will do with your tokens is reveal. Whenever your character attempts anything significant, both you and the narrator will take a random number of tokens from 1 to 3, then reveal. If you have a different number of tokens than the narrator, your character succeeds. The number of tokens you can pick up in a reveal and how the result works are also dependent on how easy or how hard the task is. My example before was for normal. Now of course, you might be asking, where do I get tokens? The first 8 tokens you get is only for character creation after all. Well, your character also has a stat called Constitution, which is how tough you are, but you don't fill this with number, you fill it with tokens. You are beings made of emotion after all, and this is where the game goes from great to genius. Because when you are at max Constitution, you can basically do anything you want. You can tackle challenging tasks and then make an effort to make the reveal 1 or 2 steps easier, by discarding some of your revealed tokens later, or just take risk because you know you can handle a wound or 2 if you fail. But when it gets low, suddenly, things don't look so good and you should focus on survival. How do you recover Constitution? Well, you eat something of course, whether by hunting, or foraging for food. You could also try wind farming for extra vitamin if you got the tool for it. You don't just gather food, by the way, you also have to go through the process of cooking it until there's only 3 color left on the meal, and each prey you can find have a color set of Constitution of their own. The color is very important, because if you only have 3 colors in your Constitution, you suffer malnourishment, causing you to be unable to express emotion associated with the missing color. This is what happened to most of the salt state indentured folks, by the way. They eat a diet of wheat, barley, and other taxable crops, which do not produce black Zephyr, which means they are constantly fucking depressed. Salt state really sounds like a certain place. Basically, remember to have a senshi in your party, it's very important. Also, getting technology for better cooking or hunting is very nice to have. What do you need to express emotion for? Well, to create bonds with someone or something. This is called evoke, and you can do it when revealing to succeed at a task automatically. You also want to write down which emotion you have evoked. Fear, longing, sorrow, and rage are all different for each clan, but two are shared across all: love and guilty. Noticed how love needs black and guilty doesn't need it? Salt state is in a salty fucking state. The more you evoke at a certain someone or thing, the higher the bond goes, which can affect your reveal for certain action by making it a number of step easier. It's also important to note that emotion is a complicated thing. Sometimes you can both love and hate something. A single concept can have up to 3 feelings towards them. Emotion are never simple. Also, if this was not clear before, evoking requires you to spend 3 of your tokens. This doesn't mean Windfolk feel less emotion, as their total constitution means they can only express emotion once or twice on full stomach without dying. There's a great leap between feeling and expressing emotion, something I frequently struggle with because people around me think I can't make complex thoughts because I don't talk about them to them, and then they think I'm annoying when I actually do. This does lead to one of the funniest lines in the game, because Windfolk can't work at retail, as they will just die from trying to express how much sorrow they are feeling from it. That's so funny in how sad it is. Other than making reveal easier, bond also increase load, how much you can carry. Making bond quite literally makes your character larger, denser, and stronger. Forget the burden of your sin, here's the literal strength of your bonds. Bonds can also work as emotional fuel for pattern, which is one way to improve your Windfolks. I will talk about how that works later. Bond can also be used to make your reveal one step worse, but this add a token to the region. Anytime you spend tokens, that's the keyword here, like when evoking bonds, you also threw those tokens to region. Only when you discard, discard the tokens. But why would you want to do this? Simple, tokens that are placed on the region can be used to cause regional triggers. These can be used to make a small change to the environment, or even changing the weather entirely, which can be important, as weather lasts an entire session, and some weathers can be really bad. You definitely don't want to use your glider to have a Gilbly experience while there's a thunderstorm around. It's also such a fantastic way of reminding the players that they are a part of the living environment that is Ophoi, and by releasing Zephyr back into the world through expressing your emotion, the world bends around you. You can even further understand part of the world through Entwining. Windfolks have a view that all things have personhood: animals, mountains, rivers, anything. This isn't like some kind of psychic mental connection, this is just a sentimental communion with the world that surrounds you. This makes all reveals related to the Entwined party one step easier, and the player can play as the Entwined party and evoke bonds using their constitution too. To entwine, you just need to do a little ritual and match your constitution with the entity. All you need is a little alignment, so while you are playing as a bunch of Windfolks that might not be strong on their own, by understanding and connecting with the world, things might just get easier for you. Okay, so almost everything I just told you is what you can do in Zephyr, but not why you do it. Obligation is the main narrative driving force in Zephyr. It's not simply a task or quest, rather, what is the task is not important, the journey and the strengthening of ties between communities are more important. Obligation isn't about being sociable, it's society itself for the Windfolk. First step to obligation is to decide what technologies you want, like how to read the weather better, how to glide with no hands, or even how to give the best hug ever. Technologies for the Windfolk isn't just like telephone, or car, or goddamn algorithm. Anything that can be passed down to the next generation is considered as technology, which included techniques to do better at things. You then go through the process of describing your Windfolks learning this technology, by training in the wild or gather the material for it. Then you quantify all the OI value of the technologies you learned and compile them together with some extra from these lists. Windfolk doesn't really conduct trade with currency, so OI is used to quantify reciprocity in our human view instead. OI is kinda like an awkward feeling that seeps into place, a bad vibe. Your Windfolk has learned all these new technologies from another person, and now you are feeling this OI in you, an emotional toll. I really like that it's called OI, because it's the exact same sound you will get very annoyed with if someone use it to call you. Then you will be given a fetish, a small wooden figurines from the people you have established obligation with. This is now considered as an unfulfilled obligation, and at the end of each session, you have to make a special reveal in which when you fail, you have to discard tokens equal to number of your unfulfilled obligation. You are literally taking emotional toll with these fetish around, it's a literal burden of unity, duty, and destiny. And then you go on a great journey to fulfill your obligation, which can take you to the nearby Waffle House or a different part of the continent. Already the book has provided some Windfolks for the narrator to reveal to the players for some ideas of what obligation to give to the players. And it is through these obligations that you have learned technologies that can be vital to your community, and when you return, you can aid your community or teach the next generation with them, and thus the Windfolk lives continue. Upon completing an obligation, the needle that holds the fetish together will set loose, and you are free to use it to weave pattern into your character sheet. You can weave multiple patterns from one completed obligation if it has enough Ophoi value, each for one length between two dots. You also need to weave them uninterrupted, connected by either their starting or finishing holes. These patterns have powerful effects that can aid your characters in specific situations, and their intensity can increase through the bonds you have forged, meaning you can literally get strengthened by the power of your friendship. These patterns can do things like letting you breathe underwater and understand the mood swing of the earth, just be better at things by respecting the environment, make a tiny creature out of cotton, literally use your emotion as fuel in a combustion engine, set everything on fire, run across the wind on your feet, combine two Windfolks into one to combine your strength, or even just turn your bonds into emergency ration for when you really need it. Some patterns are for a specific clan only, some need to be evoked to be activated, but all can be used to aid in your journey to fulfill your obligation. That's basically the entire cycle of the game. You wake up, express feelings to the world around you, hunt, cook, eat, sleep, learn technology from someone, get obligation from someone, complete obligation to strengthen the ties of your community, and it will strengthen you as you can weave pattern onto yourself. You are simply a part of a wonderful living world. What you take, will be what you give away. Which is why the true antagonist of the Windfolk is a complete antithesis of everything they are. Salt State is a state built upon monopolization of violence and debt, where apathy is cultivated as strength to cope with misery of life under the yoke, and this eventually resulted in the Salt State heroes. There are many dangers to the Windfolk in the world, but an animal is just an animal, and a river is just a river. Salt State heroes are on an omnicidal quest for supremacy, an inversion of journey Windfolk partakes to fulfill their obligation. To sum it up, the Salt State heroes are fucking maniac here to randomly slaughter or enslave people and then go home to use the violence they have learned to warp the state in their own image. If you encounter a Salt State hero in your journey, run, because if you don't do that, the hero can literally rip your character sheet apart with their musket and sword. You can survive it, but oh boy, your Windfolk is definitely gonna remember that for the rest of their life. Here's where the game gets real smart again, as when you get focused by the hero, you alone have to present as many different color as possible to increase your chance to escape, but if you can't, you can grab some from the region, representing you using the environment to escape, which is thematic as heck. It's also what got me to slap the truly Gilbly sign onto Zephyr, right next to Flying Circus, as like most Gilbly films, it's cute, there's flying machine, and then things get real violent and someone got shot. This continues until the hero's courage is depleted, then you can escape, or do whatever you need to do with the hero. And that's about it on Zephyr, a narrative ttrpg about the wandering feelings of a living continent in the form of small people. The Windfolks are the powerhouse of the cell, so it's probably not a secret that I saw something else completely different in Zephyr. It's not about the Toa, or the Mask of Life, or the choking hazards. It feels like when I was 6 years old and saw these cool robot figures on a cereal box again, and I'm just filled with so much wonders and questions again. Mata Nui Online still remains as one of the best storytelling media I have ever seen, and Zephyr comes real close in second. The second one is good too, but honestly, the story is kinda secondary here to the gameplay, which is still fantastic. Hey Holly, are you ready to practice capitalism? The Windfolks just feel so much like the Matoran, but instead of waiting for Toa to arrive to save them all, they did it themselves through their own communities, and there's just so much arts in this book, which is very helpful because there's only so much text you can type out for people to understand the frame of reference of the Windfolks. The artworks alone just tell so much stories of their own. But as much as the Windfolk society looks like a really nice place, things aren't perfect, as some of the NPC Windfolks describe their own situation, which is why you newly born Windfolks are here, to learn things, learn another way, strengthen the ties of the community, and make the future a better place, together. Anyway, you can get it now on itch.io or drive through RPG. That's all for now, and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe and click that notification bell button. If you want to see the videos early as well as further support my channel, you can join in my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.